I believe that the preferential option of the poor, which is what the church officially teaches, is just as clear as what we believe that Jesus is both God and man, right? The preferential option of the poor is housed in the Christological faith. I actually believe that. There are certain members within the church that don't believe that. And the move that is made, it's like the most vulnerable are either not even thought of or they are an afterthought. And that's not the church. I'm sorry, you cannot, I don't care what you say, anything that doesn't see those most in need first at the decision making table, anything outside of that is not from God.
Hello and welcome to the Black Catholic Messenger Show, where we keep it Black and we keep it Catholic. I'm Nate Tenor Williams, and
Father John McKenzie.
Father John works with a team of priests to administer 5 parishes in the Archdiocese of Detroit, including his primary parishes of Christ the King Catholic Church and St. Charles Lwanga Church, as well as Christ the King Catholic School. Thank you and welcome to the show, Father.
Thank you so much, Nate. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to talk about, but I want to start out with a little bit about your background. I know some of it, most people listening probably don't. So yeah, tell me a bit about where you're from, what you've been up to that's gotten you to where you are now in Detroit.
I thought you was going to say in deep trouble.
I hope not.
No, I'm originally from, Detroit, Michigan. Grew up here, born and raised here, became Catholic here, went to Catholic school here. I eventually, like a lot of young men in our community, we spend some time with our grandparents. So I moved to St. Louis way back when, with my grandparents, grew up partially there in St. Louis, went to middle school there, high school there, and actually rediscover my faith there sometime after high school. Actually during high school, when Pope John Paul came in 1999 to St. Louis, but didn't really start practice until a few years after that. But so from Detroit, also St. Louis, and ended up moving to Rome back in 2003. I was in a discernment house for 2 years, and then I became a monk in this small little town called Norcia in Umbria. And please,
where's Umbria? Nobody knows
Umbria
Umbria
is the and people, don't you hate when people like use the foreign pronunciations of like words? That's natural. That comes naturally to me. Okay, so I'm not doing it. I lived in Umbria, But even in the seminary, my seminary brothers would always say like, "Why do you got to say it like that? Like spaghetti." But but Umbria is in the middle of Italy, what we call the heart of Italy, the green heart of Italy, it's called. So it's just north of Lazio, which is where the region of Rome. So Umbria has some of the great saints, Benedict of Nursia, where the town I lived in Norcia, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Clare of Assisi, St. Clare of Montefalco. Some of the great saints actually came from that region of Umbria. And so was a monk there for from 2000. So I lived in Italy from 2003 to 2016. So I think I was 11 years in the monastery and then 12 years altogether as a monk. And then I came back here to Detroit in 2016. I was in the seminary. They ordained me deacon and then a priest. And I was at this big parish in the suburbs called Shrine of the Little Flower, beautiful place. Beautiful people, but with the heart always wanting to serve in the city and especially to the Black Catholic community. And so I was given the great task to be here at Christ the King in Northwest Detroit with the school, and I've been here since 2022. So that's my life in a very quick way. Man, that sounds like really easy. That's that sounds like easy stuff.
I mean, if we put it on a map, though, I think people might realize that's a lot.
That's a lot. It's a lot. Yes, for sure.
How in the world did you end up as a monk in Italy? I mean, there's so few African American monks in the first place, like ever
Yeah.
in history. But yeah, how did you end up over there?
Well, you talk about African American monks. We got to give a big thanks be to God for Father Cyprian Davis, who was a
I know
Benedictine
that's
like
right.
myself, and he actually got me. Where's his book at? His book is right over there. Uh, the history of Black Catholics in the U.S. I actually never had the blessing to meet him, but the prior of the monastery I belonged to in Norcia, he was from
Hmm.
St. Meinrad, the same abbey as Father
Oh,
Cyprian Davis. So him and I we would correspond on email, and then he sent me his book, and he wrote a little signature in there and dedicated it. So I was really thankful to have that connection with Father Cyprian Davis. And actually, most people don't realize Father Cyprian Davis was a historian by fact. Like he knew a lot about his big study was in the French monastic history of the Abbey of Cluny. That's what he was mainly known for in the monastic world. In
I
the
didn't know
Black
that.
Catholic community, he was known as a historian of Black Catholic, community and church and all that. But in the
Hmm.
Benedictine world, he was a historian, a church historian, monastic historian. So,
I did not
yeah.
know that he had a specialty outside of Black Catholicism.
Yes, that's what he was mainly. The interesting thing about a lot of monks sometimes, monks might be known for something in the monastic world, but not known for that in the kind of larger world, but might be known for something else in the larger world. There's another monk like that, Abbot Jerome. No, I can't think of his name. He's the abbot out at Mount Angel. He's known as an Evagrian scholar within the monastic world, but a liturgical scholar for everybody else. But it's yeah, he's a historian of the fathers of the church.
What was that first word you said? A what scholar?
Oh, I'm sorry. Of Evagrius of Pontus.
Oh,
He was a father of the church. He was a deacon ordained by Gregory. I'm sorry, he was ordained by Saint Basil of Cappadocia.
I know who that
And
is.
right, so Evagrius, a lot of Catholics won't know about Evagrius because he's not in our canon of saints. He is found in the Syriac canon.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but he was a monk and he wrote about the internal spiritual life, and so, but because his writings never got diffused in the West, it's only been in recent times where um, the abbot out at Mount Angel, I can't think of his name right now, wrote on him. I know another monk in Hungary that wrote on him, and things have had to be translated from Syriac to vernacular languages. But yeah, there's a lot to discover in the monastic world of things to then diffuse to the larger church, which is kind of like I love that's the real thing why I enjoyed. That's why I think I fell in love with the monastic life initially because
Hmm.
you could see the depth of faith, lived in the monastery, the liturgical life of the monks, but everything kind of connected. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just like Advent was a whole thing in the monastery, right? The readings that you read, the prayers that you recite, the mass propers, everything is just so fasting. We even fasted, right? This is in the rule of Saint
Hmm.
Benedict. So you have a deeper understanding of the faith, but really, I mean, the monastic life is really to you join the monastery to conquer yourself and give yourself back to God. So I think there's a lot of richness that the wider church has yet to discover from the monastic tradition. I don't know when that's ever going to get discovered because, monks, we tend not to be, or I'm not a monk anymore, but they tend not to be like, hey, let's go preach to the world all this great treasures we have too, right? So, you know,
I
so
believe the abbot you're thinking of maybe Jeremy Driscoll.
Jeremy Driscoll, yes, Abbot Jeremy Driscoll, yes, yep. So, so yeah, sometimes monks are known for one thing internal to the order and known for another thing, to the outside world.
So it seems you were still maybe a monk at heart, but I'm curious why you came back from Italy to serve in Detroit.
Yeah, I was studying to become, vocation is the divine vocations, right? There are multiplicity of vocations. Even, Ratzinger said that in his interview with Peter Saywert some years ago at the Abbey of Monte Cassino, the flagship of the Benedictine orders. Anyway, the monastic vocation, like the vocation to become a monk, is very different, right, than becoming a priest. They're not one and the same at all. It to become a monk is to dedicate yourself entirely to God's work. And we have to remember, like, in the tradition, a man or a woman didn't become a monk because they were called to become a monk and God called them to become. No, you went to the monastery to do the work to make yourself become holy because you recognize your sinfulness. So you enter the monastery because you were a sinful person and you are seeking redemption via the monastic way of life. That's literally what that was the whole tradition of the monastic life. It wasn't like a vocation to become a monk. You're a sinful person. You went to the monastery to work out, your salvation there. So that vocation, and you find that in the Desert Fathers as well. By the way, uh, North Africa was very much known as the origins of the Christian monastic tradition. Started in Egypt, in the Skeet of Egypt, with Saint Anthony, but even before him, there was a Saint Paul, a hermit, and then they gathered together these laymen and women. And by the way, there's a whole book on the sayings of the Desert Fathers and a whole book on the saying of the Desert Mothers. Unfortunately, it's not translated in English. But all these laymen and women went to the Skeet to go seek out wisdom from the abbas, and so they would ask the abba, "How can I obtain salvation?" So they lived this prayer life, this ascetical life, this life of simplicity of work. So that was very distinct from becoming a priest. In fact, in Egypt, the monks disdained becoming a priest because becoming a priest meant, one, that you were dignified enough to become a priest, and two, that you were going to kind of give up a little bit of that prayer life, that dedication to God, because you have to, do the sacraments for the people of God. So the monastic life always had a tension between, priests and monks. Now, obviously, in our contemporary times, a lot of that has gotten worked out, but you still find in monasteries where there's some great holy men that you would say, man, you would be a great priest. And it's like, no, I'm a monk. That's what I do. That's who I am. So for me, that's really what I saw. I only felt called to the priesthood so in our monastery, we would go to France, part of our novitiate training. And I was in a monastery in France and I saw the monks celebrating mass. And I thought, I think I can understand why God could call a monk to become a priest. And then obviously it's a whole discernment between, at that time we had a prior with the abbot and the monk, and eventually the prior, now the abbey is a whole abbey and they have an abbot. He sent me to study theology. At the time, I realized that I'm a people's person, so I'm naturally inclined toward people. In the town I lived in, in the monasteries, I was the gift shop manager, I was the guest manager. I mean, the guest master, gift shop manager, uh, house prefect, so the guy that goes buy stuff, and so most of even my monastic life was spent with the externs, as they say, with the people. And I also helped out with first communion in the town, and I was a part of the Caritas, the charitable board of the parish. So I still did a lot. And so I felt like if I'm going to become a priest, then I kind of want to be a priest out there, and then be able to receive that richness of the monastic life, coming back, right? And at the time, our abbey was going through it's a it's a newly found community, or it kind of was a refoundation of a community that was there 200 years ago.
Hmm.
They came back in 2000, and so we were kind of discerning as a community as a whole, should we be more of a contemplative community, like you find in France, like monasteries in France that don't do any apostolic work. Their work is internal to the monastery, internal to the cloister, or is it more like an American style where you will, monks have universities and schools and parishes, and there's a lot of apostolic work, or do we do something in between, like you find in the Italian houses where, you might have work, a little bit of work outside, but most of your work is internal. So we were kind of going through all of that, and that also meant, what would it mean to be a priest in that monastery? So you know, do we just, give the sacraments internal to the monastery? So confessions only to the monks, or mass for conventual mass and things like that. And I felt very much that I knew the Lord was calling me to do pastoral ministry. Um, and so it was a discernment with, my abbot or the prior at the time. And it became very clear, I mean, it was kind of given to me in a kind of, very honest way, but very much told that, hey, if you, um, we think you are called to the priesthood. However, there wouldn't be apostolic work here, for you to do. But you could be called elsewhere to do that. So it was difficult, obviously. So I had to make a choice. Do I stay in the monastery and just kind of live out the monastic life, or do I become a priest? And with the support of I've made a decision with the support of the prior, very much the support of the prior. They kind of helped me kind of make that transition, and then I joined the seminary in Detroit. So that's really about it.
Wow. That's very inspiring, especially to people who don't know how to discern. I would put myself among them, but yeah, that can be a kind of nebulous word, but to put it in
Yeah.
such concrete terms and as part of a community there,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome.
Well, discernment, Nate, I just finished my Advent canonical retreat and really focused in on discernment. So, and I don't want to sound like I am not a master of the spiritual life by any means. Like, I am completely a beginner. But I think what I view as discernment is when you have first of all, discernment is this discernment of the spirits, right? So what are the spirits? Well, John says it, the tradition talks about it, right? There's the good spirit and the evil spirit. Okay, so it's discernment between good and evil. All right, then what is that good? And generally you're discerning something good that's dynamically good, like it's just good in itself, and then a temptation away from that good. And so that's the discernment. Then once you understand, like, okay, what is that good that's before me, and what is that temptation that's leading me away from that good? That is the essential of discernment. And then when a good discernment is when it's well reflected, obviously spiritual direction and prayer and God's providence, because he'll put things in place and move a person's heart. So you generally know when you're choosing that dynamic good versus when you're choosing, the temptation or that which is evil. Um, but that's a real process to go through, and it does take a little bit of self emptying and also truth. Like, you have to really place yourself, man before God, right? You have to actually place your entire self before God. Um,
Mm.
and then, then you make the choice. And that's it.
Indeed. And you made your choice, and now you're back
Now I'm
home.
stuck
And
here.
no, we all know that. I hear Detroit is actually is up and coming, that it's back. So I feel
It
like
is. It is.
you had good timing.
Yeah, it is. It's a comeback, and it's coming back, and people, people of Detroit are very trying to think of the best word is on the whatever like a synonym for like stubborn, like just
Mm.
like they're like 10 toes down, as the kids say today. They're 10 toes down for the city, 10 toes down for that whole thing, like Detroit versus everybody. That's a real spirit of like Detroit. Like just we're gonna make it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is actually.
Um, I can't say I'm from a city like that, but I'm 10 toes down for my for cities that I've moved to since I left my hometown. But
Right. So where can you talk about that a bit? Because I don't know. I know about you, but I don't know much about you. I know you're from, can I say, right?
yes, I'm going to slow
Indiana.
you a little bit because you said you're partially from St. Louis.
Yes, sir.
So
Yep.
you should know my hometown of Evansville, which is only a scant few hours east of St. Louis.
Evansville, but that's Illinois.
No, Evansville's on the border of Illinois. It's like less than, I think, 45 minutes from the border of Illinois. That's why it's so
Is
close
there
to.
is there wait, is there a college there? Is there a university?
There's two, University of Evansville and the one you're probably talking about, the University of Southern Indiana, which has like
Anyway, but
40,000
I think I
students.
went to because I used to throw college parties back in the day. I think I was at a party there once back in the day.
uh,
I'm sure. I'm
it's
sure.
possible. I don't know
Yeah.
if either of those is a party school, but I would believe that you came to Evansville because it ain't far from St. Louis. But
It ain't far from
anyways,
St. Louis. Yeah. Okay. So okay,
I
you were
was
there. Where
I was
else? Where
born and
else?
raised in Evansville, Indiana. I went to
Okay.
school or college in Los Angeles, California, at Pepperdine University, and
Wow.
then I lived in New Orleans, between New Orleans and California for several years. I spent some time overseas in South Korea and China, and
Wow.
then I came back and continued to shuffle between New Orleans and California, mostly Los Angeles, but my final California stop, well, 5 years ago was San Francisco, where I moved in 2018. I'm 10 toes down for San Francisco, for example. And yeah, then I went to New Orleans again right before the pandemic. And that was right after I became Catholic in December 2019. So I just made 5 years as a Catholic. And then
Wow.
I went to seminary. So from New Orleans, I went to seminary. I was in Washington,
The
D.C.
seminary
for
in
2
New
years.
Orleans? Wait, you joined New
No,
Orleans seminary? Oh.
no, no, I did
Oh.
not. I became a Josephite. And so
Oh,
they,
right, right. That's right. Yeah.
so I did, I guess maybe it's called postulancy in New Orleans. And then I went to Washington, D.C. for 2 years for school,
That's right.
where I did philosophy. And then I came back to San Francisco in spring 2023 or
Okay.
summer
Okay.
2023.
So I guess you felt not so much. We don't have to make this is not a spiritual direction. By the way, I'm not a spiritual director anyway, but
Yeah.
you, yeah, not at all. Honestly, like people know, like people that know me, even people I say like I could give spiritual guidance, but I'm not like a spiritual director. I actually think most diocesan priests should not be a spiritual director if especially if you're running a parish because
Is,
it's too
is,
much. It's,
is
it's,
that
it's
some sort of like Thomistic distinction between guidance and direction?
yeah, a little bit. Guidance is so I come from the monastic world, so we don't even say director. Like director sounds like you're running something at a company. We would say spiritual father, right? So I see myself,
Mm.
yes, as a spiritual father to many. And sometimes that means there's one of your kids that need a little bit more care. Yeah, in that regard, and that's the title that I love the most is being spiritual father. But when you say spiritual director, that's like, every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, you're gonna have a meeting with X person about X thing. That's just not, I can't do that. Guidance is like, hey, when you need to pop in and fix it up, all right, I'm here. But don't call me every Wednesday at 10 o'clock and we're gonna have the like that's just not me.
Interesting. I mean,
So
I still don't know anything about spiritual direction, but I been told by lots of Catholics, everybody needs a spiritual director. And usually it is like the programmatic, like we meet once a month or something like that. But, I like the idea of the more like drop in when you need me idea.
Yeah, yeah. Or it's all in. Like my spiritual director, I always say I think, I'm like his thorn in a way. Like he's like learning like, oh my gosh, this guy is too much. Because I'm like,
Surely not.
you're gonna know everything, and I'm gonna give you everything, and you're gonna be my spiritual father. This is what it's all about. It's not just director, it's you're getting everything. And so, I think my spiritual director has learned like, oh, okay, this is in the monastic world, this is where this comes from. It's spiritual fatherhood where you really, it's a really, the what do they say? I'm trying to think. It's this certain transparency, that the spiritual father acts, or the spiritual mother, acts toward their child. So anyway, but that's beautiful. But not to get into spiritual direction, right, or guidance.
You said you're. Oh, are we still talking about me?
Well, yeah, we gotta go back on that. So
the Nate
you
Tenor
were,
bio show.
yeah, you were with the Josephites, and you discern in, and then you discerned out. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. And you were thinking about priesthood? You were going to become a priest in the Josephites? Because I know they have brothers and some don't all become priests and all that.
Yeah, I was discerning
Okay.
the priesthood.
Oh, wow. Okay. And is there what made you discern out of the priesthood?
So I wouldn't say that I discerned out of the priesthood, and I imagine
Okay.
that in religious life, most people who leave a community might say they discerned out of that community, which is what happened
Yeah.
for me. So
Okay.
I would say I'm still discerning the priesthood, but
Oh, okay. Okay.
at that time, I discerned out of the Josephites.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So now you still see the priesthood as something you could one day, you know, enter into at some point.
I'd love to become a priest.
Wow. Wow. So what? Okay, then just become a priest. It's not that hard.
Hey, I'm with you. Well, I don't think that's true, but by all means, uh, yeah, stay tuned, everybody.
All right, all right. Sounds like something is brewing. Well, I don't like to say we need more like, oh yeah, we need more black priests. I think we need what we need is men to say yes to the ministerial priesthood that are inclined to take up that call in a time where, especially within our black community, it's most needed. And that's a complex way to say we need black priests, but it's to me, vocation. That's what I'm saying. Like you start talking to me about vocation, I am not the cookie cutter. Like, oh God, because if we're part of the same apostolic tradition, 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, right? So, I mean, and we're the same church, right? Well, the tradition sees the ministerial priesthood very different than a little bit how we view it today. It was really like you look at Augustine. Augustine, I mean, he kind of like was avoiding to become a priest, and it was like, no, for the sake of the community, this man, or Ambrose, right? Ambrose wasn't even a Christian yet. He wasn't even baptized, and they made him Bishop of Milan. He had to do all the sacraments in one, right? Including, getting ordained a bishop. So, because it was for the sake of the community. And I think that's a way to maybe see, in terms of vocation, sometimes it's not, it's a call, but it's for the sake of, and you find that too in the calling of orders, right? When the bishop calls you to orders, that's where that comes from. A man was needed. He had certain qualities. Hey, you're in, buddy. Tag, you're it, So, and again, we have to see that in freedom and God's peace, because we don't want people to get ordained and, they shouldn't be, or, they don't have the qualities, or they didn't want to, and all that either. But yeah,
Well, I'm happy to just say this. We need more black priests.
Well, we need more black priests, but we also need, seminaries to have more black professors and
Mm,
more. I mean, it needs to be we need like seminaries to be more welcoming to, black culture in a way, right? Like
yeah.
a man, isn't, I always say this, like, guys that I interact with in Detroit, they would find it hard to be at the seminary here in Detroit. Like it'd be like a cultural shift. Like, whoa.
It ain't just Detroit.
So it's like you got to be a certain type of black man. We need a certain type of black man to then go to the seminary and then, get
Well,
ordained. It's like,
well, yeah,
so
I could say a whole lot about that, but
yeah. But you get
uh,
what I'm saying though, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot behind that statement that we need more black priests. A lot has to happen if we're actually going to get more black priests,
Yep.
and there's an open question whether those things are gonna happen in America. But we have hope.
Well, we do, but Nate, and again, I'm sorry, I speak the truth in love. It and isn't my truth. I hope this is the truth in love. You're right, we do have hope, but hope hope has to enact itself in prudence. So you have to take the steps to
Mm.
actually make it happen. And to be quite frank, I just don't see that happening. So do I have hope? Yes, I have hope in the Lord. Do I see it practically happening in his church now? No, not at all.
Uh, I'm with you there as well. I'm
Yeah.
a resident pessimist, one might say. But when I say we have hope, I do kind of mean that. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah. No, you're right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nous
Uh,
espérons le Seigneur. We will hope in the Lord.
okay, Frenchman, we see you. So you didn't just learn Italian over there.
No, I actually spent some time in Paris as well. We
Oh, you said that's where you went to school, right?
no, I went to school in Rome, but I spent some time learning French in Paris. There was
Uh,
a monastery that we were connected with in the south of France, and so we would have. So I was asked, my superior had recommended, because guest master, basilica tour person. We'd
mm,
have pilgrims from Germany and France. Those were kind of like the two, and the Dutch. But the Dutch people, they didn't really come to like visit the church. They really came to see the nature of the like around.
mm.
But so German or French, and the French obviously wanted to see the churches. So my superior said, "Hey, you can go learn German or go learn French." And so I was like, yeah, I want to learn French. And so, well, plus it was like either go to Paris and eat really nice Parisian food, or go to who knows where and eat
Whoa,
potatoes and
whoa, whoa!
sausage.
Not too much on the German food.
Wait, is it good? I don't know. Maybe okay. Tell me more.
I
Tell me more.
no, that's not what I'm saying. But
Oh, okay.
from being from Evansville, there's a lot of German people, and I'm sure I have had a lot of German food. I don't know that
Okay.
it's my favorite, but I'll
Okay.
just say, just defend my Germans
Oh,
on
all right. All right. You have that right. You have that
as a
right.
reflex. In
Okay. But I
Evansville,
chose I chose chocolat, mousse au chocolat. Okay. So that was
now
very
French food is where it's at. I'm a big lover of French food. I spent a couple hours in Paris on my way back from the Synod this
Oh,
fall,
okay.
and
Okay.
yeah, it was glorious. I did have a little bit of French food.
Nice. Where in Paris were you able to visit in those few hours?
Well, shameless plug. I visited the shrine of who I think is the only beatified Black North American person, Blessed Jacques Jules Bonneau, who was a
Oh,
Jesuit killed during the French Revolution, and he's buried
nice.
at St. Joseph de Carmes Church. Couldn't possibly tell you where it is, but
Yeah, yeah,
anybody who's from Paris or knows about Paris
yeah,
extensively will probably know where that is. But yeah, it
yeah.
was a Carmelite monastery, and a lot of people, a lot of Catholics, priests, sisters, etc., were killed there during the Revolution. But yeah, he's his shrine is there.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. And I also
I,
visited the Shrine of the Miraculous Medal.
all
Which
right, Rue de
was like,
Rue de Bac. Rue de
yes. And
Bac.
it was packed in there for mass. I was
Yeah,
blown away. Like a lot of
yeah,
black people too. I was like, wait a
yeah.
minute. They told me Europe doesn't do Catholicism anymore, but they was thick in there. So
You know, that's the thing about France. See, like the French, I mean, obviously part of it is colonialism, but the French, you know, I was surprised to see like in Paris as many black people, just present. And then
mm,
there are pockets of the French Catholic culture that are very, very like uh see, I'm thinking of an Italian now, sentito, very much felt, so
mm,
yeah.
yeah, it was beautiful. I really want to go back. But yeah, that was my experience with Paris.
Okay.
Anyways, one thing I want to talk to you definitely about, you mentioned you're a spiritual father to many. And I know a big part of that, maybe the biggest part, is your ministry at your parishes and at your school, especially, which I understand is one of the last inner city Catholic schools in the Archdiocese. Is that right?
Yeah, one of three. We extended to four because there's a border parish school that has a lot of Detroit students. So yeah, we are, yeah, we are one of the ones surviving.
How is that going? It's such an important part of Black Catholic history and the
Oh
Black Catholic
man,
present.
now you about to open up a can of worms, brother.
Tell
Uh,
me, tell me what's going on.
bro, okay, so, it's going well. In fact, tonight we just had our school Christmas party, so it is going. The community that I came into,
Hmm.
was a community that very much, loved their community and especially the school. Nevertheless, I have to say, I've been here since 2022. I was
Hmm.
surprised by what I walked into, to be quite frank, on the level of, resources available, of many different things that it takes to run a school. It wasn't like, you know, I was not prepped, okay, of what I was going to be walking into. And by the way, I just did a retreat, so I'm trying to stay real, honest, and positive all at once. So, because if we did this back when we originally scheduled it, it'd have been anyway. So, so trying to be more positive, but I walked into a situation that, I wouldn't wish on, anybody, especially any priest to then just kind of take over. And so, I was, and that is the mission of our school, which I understand to be, as Sister Thea Bowman says, that's how the evangelization of the Black community happened. It was primarily through the Catholic education, Catholic schools.
Hmm.
And, I really thought coming into it, I was going to have the full 100%, like, full steam ahead with the church, the diocese, just like fully like, yes, this is where it's at. And I realized very kind of soon into it, if by God's grace, I should say, if I don't make something happen, we could potentially, lose this school, lose this ministry. And I've just really been thankful too. I have a brother priest, and I want to shout him out, Father Marco Dejanovic, who is one of our team of priests, and he saw the same thing, and he's been utterly supportive and helping us find donors and raising awareness. And that was the other thing. Like I realized how quick, we had to make a turnaround for our school, and we did it. We did it. We had a successful, I would say, a successful year in a couple things where we were able to hire a new principal. At the time, our school, in terms of academics, was in certain classes were some of the more difficult uh, uh, academics within the archdiocese school system. And our new principal came in, and in 1 year later, she changed the trajectory of our math and reading to where our one of our classes actually became the best class to come back, right? So I mean, so we were able to hire a phenomenal principal, and that's the first thing. You just got to have an academic leader that one understands how to lead, understands academics, understands the situation, and I have to give thanks to God for Brittany Kulkowski, for her. She came all the way from Chicago, her and her husband, and she really helped in a very short amount of time to change the academic trajectory of our school. We had to remodel the school in terms of the way we approach academics, and we had to do that in a short amount of time. We had to, raise new donors, right? We had to get um, people involved, and so I spent a lot of like the last year and a half, the last 2 years has been doing social media stuff, doing videos, meeting with donors, raising awareness about Catholic education. And I have to say too that it really, like, there are a lot of people out there that want to support, the mission of our of the Black Catholic community. There are Catholics of all ethnicities out there that actually understand and want to support the mission of Catholic education, particularly in the urban environment. They are present among you. They are present among us, and we've been able to kind of raise awareness. But obviously, Nate, to be quite frank, a lot of this is done. It's an uphill battle. It's not an easy walk. And initially, there was conversations I had initially with the archdiocese, and they were hoping to give like a cushion and so that gave me a little bit of time to then formulate and bring donors in and et cetera, et cetera. And that didn't happen, and so I had to we just had to work kind of quickly, and we've been doing it, and we've been pretty successful by the grace of God at this. And but I'm gonna say this, Nate, it's really just showing people the mission. But honestly, it's taxing, to be quite frank, because it's on the one hand, I have to, it's like, it's a lot, bro. It's a lot. So, but it's worth it, because you see, we've had, and to be quite frank, man, I'm gonna just be honest. Like my first year here, I thought, this is too much. This is too much. I'm out of here. And I remember the Lord put it on my heart. He said, well, you can go if there's no light. If you don't see any light, then you can go. And it was this time 2 years ago, in fact, around this time 2 years ago. And I'm like, bet. I'm about to close my eyes. I ain't trying to see no light. And and honestly, the Lord immediately showed me there was this family from our school that were in OCIA or RCIA class, and they were becoming Catholic at Easter. And the Lord said, that's that little light, remember them? And I was like, you're right. Like, so you're like, God said, like, this is a mission. And every year we've had a family come. Last year, man, we had a kid who kept asking me to get baptized. I talked to his parents. His parents were like, yeah, he can get baptized. Well, the mom was like, I'll take him to church. The dad was like, I'm going to my church. And I was like, I gotta stay out of this one. Like, y'all can baptize him at y'all place. He keeps telling me he wants to become Catholic. I'm just letting you know. And I have you to know, man, this kid brought his entire family, got baptized last year. An entire family. Okay, that's mom, dad, and two other sisters along with himself. And so it was it's just so enriching. This year we have a few families that have been coming to mass and thinking, but again, in our Black Catholic urban environment, bro, like it ain't just being pastor, it's being fundraiser, it's being first and foremost making sure people have like basic needs of stuff, right? So like the time that I wish I had to then actually do the real evangelization, as they want to say, it's time limited because, we're kind of spread thin in a way, especially in our urban settings, and it is what it is. I've kind of accepted it, but to me, it ain't right,
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different than the environment when that Sister Thea Bowman, for example, was referring to. They were under resourced then, but Catholic schools still had at least some vestige of the resources of religious and just the backing of bishops and their chanceries, that it was just like, this is something important, this is something we're committed to. I
Yeah.
mean, half the bishops in America were like, yo, we got to get into the inner cities
Yeah.
and do this work through Catholic education. But yeah, it's a lot different now. It's a fight, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like to be on the ground doing it, but I'm glad you are doing it.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Nate. It is a fight. I'm gonna tell you that it is a fight. Yeah. Next question.
Well, the question
let me say
is,
this. It's an unfortunate fight. Let me be just straight up, because that's why it's like, I want to be all diplomatic. It's an unfortunate fight because I've always said this. I honestly believe that Jesus, okay, this rabbi 2,000 years ago, who was doing all these miracles, who would talk about his Father as God, I believe he was the Messiah. I believe that he died. I believe that he redeemed, our sins. I believe that he rose again. I believe that he gave us the Holy Spirit, and then he established the church, and he had these apostles, and they went out and preached the gospels, and they did great work, and so forth and so on. I actually believe that the church here on earth, it's the mystical body here present on earth. I believe that the preferential option of the poor, which is what the church officially teaches, is
Mhm.
is just as clear as what we believe, that Jesus is both God and man, right? The preferential option of the poor is housed in the Christological faith. I actually believe that. What I can't believe, is there are certain members within the church that don't believe that. And the move that is made, it's like the most vulnerable are either not even thought of, or they are an afterthought. And
Hmm.
that's not the church. I'm sorry. You cannot, I don't care what you say, you can never convince me that anything that doesn't see those most in need first at the decision-making table, anything outside of that is not from God. I'm sorry. Nobody, say what you want, cut my check off. I ain't, send me to prison. I'm never convinced that's how the church operates, because she's of divine origin. Who's her founder? Well, we look at the life of her founder. Where do we find that? We find it in the Gospels. We find it in the New Testament, right? We find it in the tradition, in the apostolic tradition. We find it in the teachings of the fathers of the church. We find it in documents of official magisterial teaching. All of it leads us to believe that the church is always for those most in need, and not this like equal kind of, well, you're on your own, and but then over here we're on our own too, but guess what, we have like $1 billion in the bank, and we need a new organ, and it's like, well, dang, we need a furnace. like
Hmm.
like what kind of, and then in America, the inequality is so drastic, right? Like, wherever you are, you could be, wherever it is. I mean, the fact that I could go from a place where I was initially, which is about 24 minutes away, and to come to where I'm at now, and the standard of living is so drastic. Like, my Italian friends would always say, like, one of the great things about, living in Italy is because, there is a certain, the poor live, like some of my good friends in Rome always say, Roma, I poveri e ricchi vivono insieme. The poor and the rich live together. And guess what? They go to church together. But in America, and I don't want to speak all of America, and this isn't all of America, but certain places it's so separated, you know. I mean, what happened to the whole point of like, you know, you know, bridge building, right, amongst community? What happened being unity in one? And but anyway, you know, so I don't know, man. I'm convinced that I think I have the right beliefs. Unless I've been unless I'm wrong, you know, I think, but the issue is you got to fight the system in a way. Like you got to fight against that grain. Like we operate, you know, it seems like we often operate like a secular company, you know, where it's like, well, we're going to be most present where there's an abundance, you know, and instead of being most present where the most need is. And I mean, honestly, and I'm just kind of dragging this on. I mean, I really see this is where, and by the way, what I say, I am not, I'm just being straight up. Like, you know, I'm not trying to be like a bishop or like, oh, I'm going to say about Pope Francis. So that, like, I don't care about any of that. I don't care about none of that. So, but this is what I see about like someone like Pope Francis. You know, I remember because I come from the monastic world. I come from a more traditionalist community. And I remember when I was living in Rome, you know, when Pope Francis was Pope, you know, he or is Pope, he had some showers installed in St. Peter's. And I remember going because I lived in Rome. I go to St. Peter's pray. And I remember first time I went to that bathroom in St. Peter's, and I seen this homeless man, hair and all this, and you know, he came out of the shower, and I was, you know, in the restroom, and I'm like, what is going on? Wait a minute. Then you start seeing more like homeless people and all that. I'm like, what? How dare, you know, the Pope have like the homeless at St. Peter's? And then it's like, wait a minute. No, 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 no. That's the church. That's the tradition. That's the
Gotta
gospels.
be.
And
Yeah.
so that was like one enlightenment for me, like a change of like how I started to view stuff. Like, no, that's exactly what St. Peter would have done, right? Like it started and that kind of like enlightened me a lot of like how I'm living, first of all, as a Christian man and my view and my worldview and all this, and just reading the gospels and started meditating on the gospels, you start to realize like, wait a minute, no, like when we talk about like Jesus, though rich, made himself poor to be like one of us, and you see in just throughout the gospels where he is with the tax collectors, the sinners, the prostitutes, you know, he was with all those people that, you know, were kind of like the throwaway people, you know what I'm saying? Like that was their Jesus was their rabbi, you know. Instead today it's like, you know, like my temptation, I kind of want to be like the priest for the nice folks, you know, the educated, the wealthy people, you know. It's like that's kind of, you know, but it's like no, like we need to be present to those in most need. So yeah, it's a constant fight, man. It's a constant battle. Um and I've learned like like I can't change the church. I can't change how we operate, the systems that are in place, you know. I could try my best to do what I do in this little area that I live in, and that's about it, man. I just come to accept it. Only God can change it. For some reason it is what it is, but I'm telling you, bro, it ain't it doesn't seem to be the Jesus I know from the gospel, and I just I don't see it, but I could be wrong too. So
Well, as you spoke, it made me think of Pope Francis' vision of synodality. I mean, we're not even 2 months removed from the synod, its last session in Rome. And I
yeah,
mean, this, based on the document they sent out, this seems to be a lot of the focus. And we knew from the beginning of the process that it was all about reaching people on the margins. And a lot of people pretended not to understand that. But
right,
obviously, as you said, it has to do with just the basics of what was Jesus doing
right,
and how are we modeling that today? How are we going out to the margins to reach those people in need? How are we reflecting what the first century church was like? So yeah, I think you're spot on. And again, I think there's hope because, this is what we're getting from our leadership, at least in Rome, and from at least some of the bishops here in the U.S. They're also on board with this. But yeah, do you see that intersection with synodality?
I do, and obviously, I wrote about it, and I was really content when I read that first. I really didn't. So for me, having come from my monastic world, I've read the Fathers of the Church. I've read Denzinger. I mean, I had Denzinger before they translated in English. I got the original, Greek, Latin, and Italian Denzinger, or the German.
Tell the people who Denzinger is.
Oh, Denzinger. I actually don't know who he was, but Denzinger, it was, I guess, a church historian, but he took all of the early councils and synods of the church and put them in one book. So you can just, and also the Second Vatican Council, and then you could just read the tradition. So I mean, I might as well grab it now. You're going to see my shoes are off, but anyway. Where's Denzinger?
Jesus didn't have no shoes.
Yeah, Denzinger. This is the original.
Oh,
this is
that's
the
a
original.
tome.
Yeah, I used to. This is how I learned Latin and Greek. But man, I need to go back to that. Honestly, like right now, you asked me to recite something out of this, I wouldn't know one thing from the other. But yeah, for me, reading you in the early tradition, synods were normal to have a local synod of Spain, synod of Toledo, right? All these synods that actually had an effect on the universal church. That was a very normal practice in the early church. The Church of the East, they still have most of their great decisions are made via synods, So yeah, so when the Pope, I was actually living in Rome still when he first announced not so much about having a synod on synodality, but he started talking about synodality. And that came from Cardinal, he was a German cardinal. What was his name? I can't remember. He had that really distinct face and smile.
He's still alive?
I see. Now I'm about to kill the Cardinals. I don't know what was his name? I don't know if he's dead or alive.
A German cardinal with a beard. It's not a lot of cardinals.
No, he didn't have a beard. He was a German cardinal. Hold on, German cardinal. He was in charge of the Christian unity before Cardinal Koch. Walter Casper. That's who it is. Okay. All right. Is Walter Casper? Okay, good. All right. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to kill the cardinal now. I don't remember, but he must be up there.
He is 91.
Okay. All right. So Walter Casper wrote because he did a lot of dialogue with the East, and so I remember Pope Francis talking about that at the Regina Coeli, and that I was like, wow, like the Pope is talking about synodality, and it just kind of reminded me of like reading Denzinger in the early church, that this is kind of what the early church did. So yeah, I do see that cross section. I see it with the three words, right? Participation, mission. What is it? Participation, mission, communion, participation, and mission. Like if you don't have those three, you really can't do the works of the church, and communion and everybody participating. So yeah, no, I definitely see the cross sections between the church kind of looking towards more the first millennial church, the mission, which is the same mission today, but looking at the first millennial as an example to live in this new millennial that we live in. And synodality is one of those ways to which we can, move this mission. But I don't know, man. I mean, I don't see the big flags saying, yeah, we're doing synodality. So, we'll see if it works out. But I understand the concept. It's magisterial teaching, by the way. So we are to adhere to it. But we'll see, we'll see.
Indeed, we shall. I have a very random question for you, and it popped into my head when you were talking about Italy. because you mentioned the region that you're a monk in. And there's actually a woman, an African American woman, who is a novice with the community in that same region now. And I'm curious if you
Really?
know Latanya Taylor.
Oh, geez. Okay, can I Google her real quick?
Well, the
What
only thing you're
orders?
going to find is an article in BCM that we published a few months ago.
Wait, hold on. What?
She was at the Eucharistic Congress, and one of our writers
Yeah,
interviewed
the
her.
young girl. She's with the Sisters for Life.
No. This is well, I don't know how old she is. Don't let me date her, but she's with the Poor Clares of Clarice Monastery of San Leonardo in Montefalco.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Oh
Yeah.
no, I didn't. I do remember seeing her at the Congress. So I'm actually going to be in. So oh, you know what, bro? You need to get her in touch with my good friend, Father Simone, Don Simone Marchi. He goes there all the time. He knows the nuns really well. In fact, I'm going to ask him to make sure he greets. In fact, we need to do. Yeah, with Latanya. In fact, we need to do an episode with Don Simone because I think he wants to bring young people from America to Italy. So in Italy, he has these houses in Umbria. There were once, rectories and all that, but they've been renovated due to earthquakes and all that. And so, people can stay there basically for free. I mean, you have to pay like the Italian tax, like €11 a month, or €11 a day plus utilities, but it's very cheap. So you could easily go stay. And Don Simone goes to Montefalco often, so I'll have to ask him to. That's awesome. That's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yes, carrying on the religious tradition of African Americans in
Umbria. That's right. That's right. She representing. I love it. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what else should the audience know about your ministry there in Detroit? I mean, you're one of the youngest. I mean, are you the youngest African American priest there?
Bro, I am. Yeah. I mean, right now we only have two active Black American priests, myself.
Really? Two?
Yeah. Yeah, just two. The other one just retired. One just retired, and that's the church I took over. And then the other one he's at retirement age. He doesn't plan on, retiring. But that's it. That's all we got.
Is there anybody in the seminary?
No. Ain't nobody, no. No. Yes, mercy Jesus. But what else would I would say? St. Charles Awanga, it's a 100-year-old parish. It used to be St. Cecilia. It merged with the other parishes, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the church that unfortunately I got to throw it out there. It's kind of in transition. It's a 100-year-old, Black Catholic church. It's beautiful, beautiful people. I've been there kind of doing mass since September. It's no secret they are undergoing a transition, due to, lack of resources and the facilities. And it's a real difficult time, to be quite frank, for all of us, Nate, and I don't want to just put this about me, but I see the beauty of the Black Catholic experience, their prayer life, their worship, the way they worship, their uplifting spirit, the beauty that they bring to God's church, and that extends to evangelization. And it's so unfortunate that this community has to undergo, a transition. Now, I can't talk about what that transition is because we actually don't know right now, but it will undergo some form of transition in a very, sooner than later. And for me as a Black Catholic priest, it pierces my heart a lot, because I see the beauty, I see the great things we could do, and yet at the same time, I just see like where has the church, where have we like, and I get it. Yes, we had the church did support, this parish for a long time. You there?
Yes.
Okay, you went off a video.
I unplugged my computer. I guess I didn't like that.
It didn't. Yeah, as soon as I started talking about St. Charles Awanga, I get it. I get it, St.
This
Charles.
is
Yes, I get it. I get it. I'm right there with you, brother. You know it.
Lord
Um,
have
but
mercy.
but yeah, man, it's really difficult. It's a real difficult time, to be quite frank. But the Lord, well, you keep talking about hope, so hope in the Lord. But it's difficult. It's real difficult.
I assume, as with many black parishes that are in similar situations, it has to do with, aging congregation, young people don't stick around. Is that kind of the story?
Yes and no. I would say, St. Charles Awanga has a great mix, actually. I mean,
Mm,
they have young families there. They have obviously older people there. It is a mix. It's not like what you would think, kind of like, oh, you just see all the old people there and they're trying. No, it's vibrant. It's just that they're in a situation where the facilities are the facilities, and
mm,
it's like it almost seems like now we're in a crossroads where the church, okay, it can't support these types of parishes, or is not willing to support these types of parishes, or like we keep saying, I mean, beating around the bush, like there's no new like energy, and so my big hope is like the community can stay, together somehow. But it's difficult, man. It's really difficult, and it weighs a lot, on me, because it's in what we have to do. But you know,
Well, you told me why you were able to see hope at your school. So, is there a place where you see hope in a place like St. Charles Lawanga?
yes and no. It's like, I mean, I think, like, just not to be self-centered, but just talk about self, I'm not a magician, like I don't have the wand that can be like, ba boom, boom, and there you go, and the situation I came in with the school, you, hey, a brother gets tired, quickly about all the things you got to do to turn something around, and that's not people think that that's not a walk in the park. So is there hope for this community? Yes. I think there's some options the community does have, and we're all looking at and discerning, but everybody's in that process because it's all happened kind of in a quick way, right? For all of us, right? I just stepped in and just learning what the issues are. And it's like I'm just learning what the issues are, and I'm just getting to learn who the people are. And then the people are starting and are now getting to know what the issues are. And it's like we're all kind of like, oh my gosh, we're all kind of learning together. But the parish does have options, but to the point of like turn it around. And I mean, we're not even there yet, to be quite frank. I mean, we're not all there with our school even. I mean, we're just now getting to the point where, I'd like to get us to the point where, you know, what we're raising is not going to the current year's, operational expenses, right? So I would love to
Yeah.
be at a place and space where it's like, no, we have like the endowment, and we receive this endowment every year, and this goes to this and that, kind of, there are communities do that. Did you know there are communities that do that and that have the money to be able to do that? And it's so lovely to hear them talk about it. It's like,
Imagine
wow.
that.
Yeah, just I feel like, wow, and it's just like, yeah, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. And it's like, wow, man. So we're not even there yet with the school, but God willing, we'll get there. Unfortunately, with this parish, it's we're too late in the game, So,
Mm,
but it's like everyone is asking, and I'm gonna throw this out there. People are asking, like, does the church support, the Black Catholic communities? You know, What does it mean I had a man come up to me on Sunday, like, Father, what does it mean to be Black and Catholic? If in fact the church doesn't seem like it appreciates who I am, you know? And he said it, don't, and not just the other parishioners, and some of them say, even they asked me a question. They said, Father John, we actually don't want you to answer that. We just want to ask it. And that's what they're going through, bro. So that's what people feel when they're in this type of situation. And again, we have to look at the church, like who the church is, what she is, and going back to the apostolic origins. If Jesus was here with his 12 apostles, would he not try to? It's the principle of the 99 and the one, right? Now we would think, okay, we got 100 sheep. One of them left off. Listen, we gonna keep these 99 because ain't nobody got time to find that sheep that's always going off, always going to eat grass way over there. Ain't nobody got time for that. We're gonna get the sheep dogs. We're gonna keep it moving. All right. We lost one. Jesus says no. Who wouldn't go and get the one? Well, nobody, Jesus.
Right, none of us.
No, nobody would do it. What you talking about? But in his divine mind and divine reasoning, that's who you mostly go to. So get the sheepdog and the shepherd. We're going to go after this one. We're going to help this one. We're going to do all we can to bring this one back. But unfortunately, you know, parts of the church, that's just not where we are. So God willing, there's hope to get there, but that is not where we are. We have operated off of a secular mentality that's void of the gospels of the Son of God, the founder of the church.
Well, praise God that the spirit within us is not practical, and I hope we listen to him.
Yeah. No, we got to go after the 99. We have to go after that one. We have to. We have to do all we can. So right now, that's kind of where my energy is gone, and it is really like tore me apart in a way. And I just came back from a retreat, and I'm kind of back to Humpty Dumpty put back together, and just kind of staying focused on what I need to stay focused on. But do pray, man, and anybody listening to this, like, pray for our communities. It's hard. There's a lot we're dealing with now, especially in the Black Catholic community, that perhaps, like you said, like in the Sister Thea Bowman's time, there was difficulties, but there was at least a push toward, moving it forward. Where it seems now it's very, very more ambiguous. So yeah.
Yeah, we lost a lot of that fire, but
yeah,
I do think the flame is still burning, but
I do too.
What do I know?
You know a lot. You started a whole media outlet in that regard. I mean, you're part of that. You're part of the movement. You're part of that going after the 99. You're saying, like, no, what about us, and how can I highlight the Black Catholic experience in America and worldwide? That's huge. That's huge, Nate. I mean, you're going down and you're going to be in this thing oh
Lord,
Encridion. You're going to be in the Encridion, Nate Tenner. Symbolorum.
Well, I hope the BCM team, we can continue to do good things. That's the goal, certainly.
You are, and keep highlighting. I know people that read, you got you and others, and keep being that voice. And we kind of have to, despite anything, one of my good friends, he's one of my more closer advisors, and he's like, in the absence of leadership, you have to fill the void. You have to fill the void. So it doesn't matter like what support, non-support you get. The mission, the divine mission is the divine mission, and Christ says it. Everything is found in the Gospels. He says it. You obey, you obey, you do what, your superiors say, and you pray for them. That doesn't mean you have to do what they do, right? You don't have to act that way. I don't, we literally, and I'm not trying to big up myself, but today, we gave our security guard who does our parking lot, we were donated a car to which we've generally, well, like doing our garage sale, we've sold, but we got this car like in November. And I said, we've been given so much graces, and new people have donated to us. Like, can we donate this car? Like, why do we always have to seem like we're like, wheeling and dealing for a nickel, right? I'm like, let's give this car to somebody, right? And then, the whole team was talking about who we give it to, and we gave it to our 85-year-old security guard, and he started crying today. He was just so surprised and shocked. And it's like, see, we see, if I thought with another type of mind, a secular mind, I would have sold the car and got my $15,000, and I would have had it on the books and all that. It's like, no, that ain't how we supposed to operate. We've been blessed with great gifts this year and last year, and why don't we give? Why don't we could give too? That's what the Gospels talk about, and it moved hearts. You see, like, people tearing up. I don't tear up anymore. I think I've been so jaded.
Oh
And
Lord.
like, I can't tear up anymore, but I'm seeing everybody tearing up. So I'm like, man, if I tear up, that's how I would tear up too. This would be the point. But it's just so beautiful to be able to, it's so freeing to actually live the Gospels. And again, I'm not holy, right? I'm not holy Father John or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all do our struggles and all that, right? But it's so freeing when we actually live according to the Gospels and in his mercy too, right? But it's freeing. It's like I'm so at peace because I know I'm living the Gospels, and that may not mean everybody likes me and gets it. And in fact, Jesus says it. You will receive many brothers and sisters in houses and lands, along with persecutions. And sometimes the persecutions come internal to the church. Sometimes they come external to the church. But you're gonna get it, and so we get it too. And it is what it is.
Indeed. It's a hard journey we're on, but I'm glad we're on it. I'm glad for the work you're doing, and
Yeah.
it's honestly, it's inspiring, even with the challenges, to know that there are still Black Catholics who are, fighting for God's vision of the church.
Yeah.
So thank you for the work you're
Man.
doing.
Well, thank you, Nate, and you're welcome, and thank you for allowing me to share my words here and there every so often. But I was really thankful when I was in Rome back in June, and I read that thing on the Pope, and I was like, man, and I reached out to you. I was like, Nate, can I write? Because I'm kind of like a nerd in that regard. I totally get what Pope Francis. I feel like if I sat down with him, I think we would be like, yeah, we're in the same thing, right? Like, I get it. In the first millennia of the church, the Bishop of Rome did not act as like the emperor, right? But more of a kind of sign of unity for all of the churches, right? And that thing, that document that came out, again, I just feel like, where is everybody? Why is nobody acting on it? I feel like, does anybody even reading this and like intending to really do it? But like that document can really be a guide for the church in the new millennium to actually have unity, because that's what, again, going back to the Gospels, Jesus says it, John chapter 17, may they all be one as you and I are one. So Jesus intends for the church to be one. Now, how do we be one? Well, we definitely are not going to unite with the Church of the East, the Orthodox and Oriental churches, and all of a sudden, Patriarch Bartholomew is going to be like Cardinal Bartholomew. I mean, that's just not happening, But how is the papacy lived out in this new millennium with regard to our Eastern brothers and sisters, and then even even within the West, but in a special way them. And I thought that document was so on point of the, you know, but it is what it is. So
I
nothing
mean,
against,
you know,
no, should I say this? Nothing against Eastern bishops becoming a cardinal, because I just said
I was
this.
gonna say Cardinal Bartholomew has a certain ring to it. I
Oh,
gotta say.
now here we go. But honestly, but I'm gonna throw it out there though, since we started it, because I already put it out there on social media. Like my good friend, he is a Ukrainian priest in Rome. I've known him for years. No, I won't say his name, but uh, he's good friends with this new Ukrainian Australian bishop that just became a cardinal, and
Mhm.
he went to the ceremony, to the consistory, and I wrote on his comment. I commented on his post. I said, "Are Eastern bishops supposed to become cardinals?" Question mark. And he never replied back to it. I don't even know if he saw it. He's been so excited. But I'm like, I kind of also get why there is this whole Eastern tradition of which, you weren't necessarily Roman clergy, but in the universal understanding in the contemporary church that we live in now, I understand it. Of course, it's more universal expression of the church, and now you have a little bit more universal expression of the Eastern churches. I get it. So, but I just don't think if we're going to be like one church all of a sudden, like the patriarchs, like Pope Shenouda of the Copts. Well, he died. I can't remember who's the current Pope of the Copts. But I don't think he would be a cardinal. I mean, you know what I mean? Maybe
Who knows
maybe
what
I'm
could happen?
like now you, who knows? But I just don't, it would be, it was never like that in the first millennial, basically. Right. So, but the
Mm.
Pope did act as a sign of unity. He resided over the church in charity. Right. So there were times in the early church where the Pope did have to intervene on behalf of the entire mystical body, but it wasn't as often as it might come out today as we see the papacy acted out in the West. And that document makes reference to that. And I thought that was really a good way to see, a sign of unity, because that's what we should be coming. We actually, our church, we need to be united. Like that's a command from the Savior. And if we're not, and that doesn't mean Orthodox Catholic or Orthodox Christians are going to become Catholic. I mean, it was one
Mm.
Catholic, Holy Catholic Apostolic Church. That's what it is. Even if you notice, like even in our Roman canon in Latin, when we say the Roman canon in Latin or the First Eucharistic Prayer, we say Catholicis et Orthodoxis. We say Catholic and Orthodox, right? So we don't just say Catholic, even in our own canon. So this idea that people are just going to automatically become Catholic, you become one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church, plain and simple. Anyway, that's too much.
May the unity of the church come swiftly. No, I have an Eastern fascination, an Eastern bent. That was actually one of my pathways into the Catholic Church, but
Yeah,
that's probably for another episode.
yeah. We'll have to talk about that, because I asked my Archbishop if he would allow me to learn the Ethiopian rite, and then would he then petition Rome to let me be biritual, and he said, yeah, of course. And I used to go to the Ethiopian church for Christmas in Rome. In fact, I'm gonna go when I'm there this time and try to get some more contacts to learn the Ethiopian liturgy, but I don't think I just don't have time to actually learn it and then cultivate it and then become biritual and do all that. So, but I think I think that's a missing piece to our whole like evangelization in America, and especially in the Black community. I think the role of the Eastern churches should have been or needs to be present in a special way, the Ethiopian church. But I talking to some of my Ethiopian priest friends, they would say, well, yeah, we could have and done the missions and all that, but I mean, for crying out loud, we are a poor church in Africa. So the last thing we're got time to do is catch a flight to America to become missionaries, right? So, but I would think it's ripe to now look at the Eastern churches and evangelization. But again, another hope. Another hope.
All right,
It's like a lot of hope.
BCM listeners, you heard it here first. Go to Ethiopian liturgy for Christmas.
That's
Ethiopian
right.
Catholic if it's nearby.
Yes, January 7th though. They celebrate January 7th.
See,
Christmas.
you can go to the Latin rite liturgy
That's
and
right.
the
And then the
Ethiopian rite.
Ethiopian. Yep. But be prepared to celebrate 5 hours of a Christmas liturgy.
It
5
is.
hours.
I've been to a few Ethiopian liturgies, and it is
Yeah.
long,
Hmm.
but it's African, and everybody's going to be black. So
Yes.
have fun.
It yeah, no, it's apostolic. It's authentically apostolic. It comes from Matthew. Matthew went to Ethiopia. He was the first, and then these 9 monks from Syria, and then eventually the Coptic Ethiopians. But
Okay, tradition.
but yeah, it's authentically apostolic, authentically African, authentically black. Why don't we see more of that here? So anyway, but we hope.
My God.
We hope.
Maybe I should leave it at that. That's a bar right there.
Yeah.
Father
All right.
John, thank you so much for
Thank you,
coming
Nate.
on to the show. Oh, before we end, how can people find out more about your ministries and support? Where do
Oh
they
man, well, Christ the King School Detroit is our website. I have Instagram, the Reverend J McKenzie. I haven't been posting a lot because I've been very busy, but I have that. Christ the King, CTK Detroit is our Instagram. I've been thinking about I had started a podcast called Father and Father with a friend of mine here in Detroit. We haven't been recording, and that's probably going to dissolve, and I want to maybe start something else up. But right now, those are the things to watch out. But
projects loading.
Projects loading. Always a project loading. But
Well,
thank you, Nate. And you're a great inspiration, and onward with the mission.
Onward indeed. Thanks for coming on the Black Catholic Messenger Show, and until next time, we're out.
Okay, peace. God bless, Nate. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.